welcome to the Dareful Project, the podcast series where we explore how cultural disruptors are reimagining the second arc of their life. I'm your host, Deborah Hotelling, with a reminder, if you like this episode, please remember to like, review, and share with your Dareful tribe. So today's guest is Susan Lee Colby. She is the founder of Grace Creative LA, which is shaking up the way brands are reimagining and connecting with midlife plus customers, also called Middlescents. What is Middlescents? Well, we're going to talk about that. But as Susan and her team like to say, and I got to read this, she refers to us as a spicy group, teenagers with money. Susan, welcome.
Thank you, Deborah. It's great to be here.
So tell us, how did you get here? How did you become committed to focusing on marketing for women over 50?
Part of it was becoming a woman over 50. But I had a long career on the creative side of advertising, working at major agencies in Los Angeles. And, it just got to a point where I took time off, to have kids. And then I came back to it. And, at a certain point, you really can't come back to it on the agency side. So I was doing a lot of freelance work for different companies. But it also got to a point where, I wanted to do something that I felt more passionate about, instead of writing, about hamburgers or selling hamburgers or motorcycles or, computers or whatever else. So I just saw this huge market opportunity too, because, just looking around me at my peers and, also as a parent, it was like, who's doing all the buying? Well, it's women in midlife, basically. And there weren't really any brands that were talking to us. There weren't any brands that were really focusing on the buying power of this audience. And often we're not even shown in the media or in advertising. And when they were, it really was not reflective of what this demographic really looked like. It was a really old stereotype, and the 50 plus audience has changed so much in the last 20 years, and it wasn't being reflected. But I think the biggest part of it is that when we dug into the data, it was like, women 50 plus make 97% of the buying decisions for their households. And that also includes their parents, their partners, their kids, their grandchildren, and their friends. So why aren't more companies actually talking to this audience? And when they do talk to us, why were they talking to us, through a 35-year-old lens?
Yes. You have this terrific stat, because I want to dig in on this. Americans age 50 and up contribute so much to the U.S. economy that if we were counted as our own country, we would constitute the world's third largest economy. Not only that, we spend 250% more on the same merchandise as millennials and Gen Zs, but marketing budgets only squeeze out about 5 to 10% to connect with us. That is incredible.
It is incredible. And it's incredible that, brands are leaving, companies are leaving so much money on the table. When you think about the fact that women over 50 account for a third to a half of all consumer spending, why aren't you talking to us? And so, why are you talking to, millennials and Gen Z? They just don't have the same amount of disposable income as we do.
So why aren't they talking to us?
I think part of it is there isn't an understanding that by talking to us, you don't become the brand for old women. I think there's a certain fear of that. But by talking to, our common desires and wants and values, I think that you can talk to us in a way that's inclusive and not be exclusive to other audiences, but you definitely need to include us. And the other part of it is that, is misunderstood is we're not just buying things for incontinence and, and wrinkle creams at all. And that goes to that that fact that we spend 250% more on the same merchandise. So, this group is just as clued into buying hoodies and electronics and sneakers and all the things that our kids like. We also like, but we also spend more on them because we can.
Yeah, that's true. My kids are always shopping in my closet because we can have the nice things that, my daughters love it.
Exactly. And in some cases, they're the ones who will bring things to me and I'll go, that's really great. And then I go out and buy it, or they find things through me too. So, it's really changed. It's not like, that moms do this and kids do that. There's a lot of crossover.
So what is Middlescents? What are we now?
So middlescence is...
I got it wrong. Middlescents. Okay.
Middlescence. So it's like middle and adolescence. And that's where we get to this idea that it's really a transitional period in midlife. And, it was coined several years ago by a psychologist, but it has become more and more popular in describing a transitional period of midlife, particularly for women, if you think about it, because of menopause being in your 50s. And it's a hormonal change, just like adolescence. It's a time when your life is changing, your identity is changing. You're trying to kind of find out who you are now that you've reached a point of a certain amount of accomplishment. And maybe for people with children, your role there is changing because you're an empty nester. So there's a lot of different things happening, and your body's changing too. But the difference, as you said at the beginning of the podcast, is, a lot of these things are like adolescence, but like being a teenager, only this time we have money. And so we want to go out and explore. We want to go out and have fun. We want to pursue our passions, and we have the ability to do it.
Oh, amen, sister. So, I think that we've all become armchair marketers because we all sit, during the Super Bowl going, yes, love that one, hate that one. Yeah. And, talking back to TV. But what is the secret sauce that Grace Creative brings when there's this much opportunity and still a lot of brands that are still trying to get it? What's your secret sauce?
Well, I think our secret sauce is experience and grace, really, which is, what we say here is that nobody at our agency is named Grace, but it's what we bring to the office, in just intelligence and calm and openness to, really getting to the heart of what matters for the consumer and what matters to the client, and all working together towards the same goal without a lot of ego. So I think, one of the things that we just launched is a newsletter, a B2B newsletter called Pepper and Salt, which speaks to this transitional period of, talking to what we call the highly seasoned audience. And, what that also means for Grace is that we are equally highly seasoned. And so our team is composed of some very heavyweight talent, award-winning talent that now just wants to work in an environment and do work that's meaningful and work in an environment that's positive and is moving this conversation forward.
When you sit down with brands, do they come to you and say, boy, there's a big opportunity here. We don't get this audience. Can you please teach us? Or do you go, how does it work? Do you have to evangelize? Or are folks coming to you going, this is a huge opportunity?
I wish more people were coming to us going, this is a huge opportunity. I still think there's a need for brands to recognize that this is a huge opportunity, but that it's not exclusive to their other goals, that, by targeting this audience, you are not then saying we're only talking to women over 50. You're including the primary decision makers in, who you are as a brand and what you stand for. So, I think it would be nice if they did, but I think there is a certain amount of evangelizing, but also just educating not only brands to the audience, but to the fact that a highly seasoned agency tends to be smarter, faster, and better because we have so much experience that we can just cut through all the noise and get to the heart of what, those insights that are going to make a difference. And to be able to execute that creatively in a way that resonates because it comes from lived experience and not from what somebody might think it's like, being over 50. We know what it's like.
We know what it's like. And you and I talked about this when we connected earlier this week about that superpower you just described, which folks who do brain research says is called the gist of something. You get right. You get the essence of it. And that's something that appears in more mature brains. And they think it's just because we can scan through all of that stuff and go, right. Okay, here's what it is. And we don't have to go through that endless repetition of figuring it out.
Yeah, there's been actual studies. I think there's one by the University of Ohio that found that your creativity actually increases over 50 because you're able, as you said, Deborah, you're able to connect the dots faster, but you also have more dots to connect. So you have a greater wealth of experience and knowledge that you're drawing from to then mix and match and, come up with something creatively.
So so everyone needs to make sure that they sign up for your newsletter because it's super smart and it's fun and it makes you feel better about where we're moving as far as popular culture. And in your last newsletter, you had Toni Collette of Mafia Mama, which when I love that. I love that movie so much. And part of why I loved it, it was this shock of going, oh my God, that's a grown-up woman. And the fact that I noticed it and kind of thought about it reminded me how few grown-up faces we still have in popular culture.
Yeah, and we try to highlight that more. We have an Instagram account called Girls Gone 50 that's been pretty popular. And the reason that we started it was not to talk about us as much as it is to reflect the audience and what the audience, responds to and what resonates. And one of the biggest things that has been a big hit for us is, we highlight different women for their birthday with, Toni Collette's was, I think this is 57. I don't remember. Sorry if I got that wrong, Toni. But it was really wonderful. We just, do a whole series of those and they always do so well. And it's, we feature women from 50 to 80. I mean, we did one on Jane Fonda that just went crazy. But it's just to show you what, not physically, not so much even physically what it looks like, but what does this age look like? And what are the things that these women have been able to accomplish and what challenges and hardships have they overcome? So that's the part I think that, is really resonating with our audience.
Tell me more about that, either what feedback you're getting or what you've learned from, that kind of research.
I mean, I think what we're learning is absolutely that this period of life, middlescence, is really viewed positively. And, we've been sold decline so much throughout our lives about age. And it's just wrong. I mean, obviously there are parts of it, but there's also another side of it, when you're free from a lot of things, one being your own self-judgment and insecurity and different things like that really make life at this stage stronger, better, more meaningful. And so that we see reflected back to us through our audience on Instagram and Facebook.
And it seems like to a certain degree that media is starting to catch on to that. I saw recently, was it the New York Times was talking about Fashion Week and
yes.
right?
Yes.
Which designer had only models over 40? Do you remember?
It was I think it's Bathsheba. They had only models over 40, and not just like skimming 40. They had models who were, 60, 70. So I thought that was so fantastic.
It was interesting reading that piece, though, that they went out on the street to find people because it
Yes.
sounded like the usual ways that you would acquire models didn't apply here.
Right. Well, I mean, and it's harder to find, right?
Yeah.
And I really applaud that, though, because then the authenticity really comes through. It's not like one woman who happens to look amazing, at 70. It's like this is the reality. You can go out on the street and find it.
Yes. Yeah, because it's easy to do if you were absolutely gorgeous at 20 and now you're a very well, and then you're 65, you still have
Right.
all that DNA goodness happening, right?
Yeah.
So that is amazing. I love that there's more on TikTok and there's all accidental icon. You've got, fashion figures that are solidly over 55 who are becoming really interesting. Who else do you follow?
I follow a lot. I mean, I also follow a lot of the female founders who are starting companies. Like, there's been a lot of obviously in the menopause space, but people like Naomi Watts, who started, who is part of Stripes. And those people are really interesting to watch. Stacey London is very interesting to watch. And I mean, the other thing I think to your point is that a lot of it is being led by fashion, which, makes sense. But I think there's been some really interesting campaigns too by fashion companies that are helping to lead the way. And of course, once something becomes fashionable, then it helps things take off, right? And it changes kind of the view of what this age can look like. And it makes it, I think they've been responsible for helping to make it look, to make age look cool and aspirational.
Yeah. I mean, it cracked me up that I think it's already gone, of course, but Coastal Grandma, that was, it had its moment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Tell me, with Grace Creative, tell me something that you're super proud of that we should all look for. What's been one of your most fun campaigns?
There's been a couple. We did one with Annie Leibovitz for Golden Door, which is a super iconic destination spa that really launched the wellness movement in California decades ago. I think that it's their 60th anniversary, something like that. But when we were brought in by our client who came from fashion again, which, again, I think they tend to be a little more forward thinking. But we were brought in to really rebrand it from a place where husbands sent their wives to a place where women sent themselves, to take a break from work. So from non-working women to, very powerful, accomplished women. And so it was really about this need for, no matter how successful you are, to get back in touch with what makes you you and what makes you human. We all need to take that time. So we shot this campaign with Annie called Human Again. And, it really was, just such a highlight of my career. And I mean, the other part of that story is you can have career highlights after 50, which was also, a great thing. But, she captures it so beautifully. And Annie Leibovitz herself is over 50, so she really aligned with what we were trying to do. But, long story short, in the end, we were able to bring down the average age of the guests from, when we started, it was somewhere north of 70. And so now it's around 51, 52.
Okay, I need to get into the weeds on working with her. What was it like? What was it like working with Annie Leibovitz?
Fantastic. It was like so easy. It was one of the easiest jobs because she is so thorough and her team is so thorough that, you know, you just, I don't know, once we, worked out the ideas with her and talked to her team and her about what we were trying to accomplish, she really put her stamp on it. And when we were there shooting, it's sort of like you just sit back and watch. Go in there, go, hey, can you move the light a little this way? You let her be her, and it was one of the most pleasant experiences I've had. And also, she was so approachable in terms of, we were trying to keep it low key because there were still guests staying there. Mm. And there was at one point we were shooting near the pool and one of the classes had just gone out and, Annie's unmistakable. And so this group of women got out and they saw Annie Leibovitz up on this ladder shooting by the pool. And they were just like, oh my God, it's Annie. So a lot of them knew her, but she was so gracious. She just got down off the ladder, said hi to everybody. And then at the end, she did a great group photo with some of the guests. And so she was just super warm and approachable. And I really respected that.
Oh, I love hearing that. Again, when we get to a certain age, one of our core values, and I'm sure it's yours too, is we only work with nice people. We've had it with the people who aren't. And so exactly. I love hearing that she's like that.
Yeah, exactly. And, what a wonderful, I don't want to say surprise because, just the whole experience with her was amazing, even in the fact that here we were, this little brand reaching out and, she saw the vision that we had and it resonated with her. So she wasn't too big to talk to us. So that was really cool.
Oh, that's amazing. And what a fun thing for everybody staying there. I've got to say, you and I both live in Los Angeles and you see famous people all the time and it's not a big deal, but I would lose my mind if I saw Annie Leibovitz, honestly, just like all the women there at the pool.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think, to your point too, you do get to a point where you only want to work with nice people. You've done the whole other thing. And I think that gets back to your point about, why Grace Creative, like what is our secret sauce? And part of that is that all of us want to do really good work with good people. And we understand that, clients have goals and they need to make money. It's not just about doing some campaign that wins awards. Mm-hmm. Hopefully you do something that does both. But
what has surprised you about this latest journey?
I think what has surprised us is how open people are to it, to this vision of rebranding aging. Because everybody ages. It's really surprised me how it's really resonated with people of all ages in some ways. And how people are really willing to help or to work with you when they believe in your vision. Mm-hmm. But that said, what also surprises me is, given all the data that we have about the power of this audience, again, how little of the budget is going towards it and how companies are still leaving so much money on the table and not understanding that it's part of a whole audience. It's not about becoming the brand for, women over 50.
Building on that, I don't want to put words in your mouth on this, but in my experience, the big surprise as I talk with brands about reimagining how you reach out to folks over 50 is that it's not a zero-sum game. People in their 20s will not dislike a brand because there is a grown-up face associated with it. And I think that that's surprising to some people. Have you had experiences like that?
Oh, I totally agree with it. And I think that's the other thing is by changing the face of aging, and making it aspirational that younger people, Gen Z in particular, I think really understands that and it resonates with them. I mean, I have 2 Gen Z daughters and they get it and they really support it. And part of what we said is, we're doing this for all the women who are going to be 50 someday too. And not just for the women who are. And I think it makes aging less scary and something that you can actually maybe look forward to, because we're marketed from the time we're born, practically. We're marketed to that, getting older is a thing to be afraid of and to dread. I mean, look at all the girls who are doing Botox now at 20.
Yeah, no kidding. And they're, it seems like they're afraid. And when they meet someone who's older, is like, this is actually really fun, they have this huge sense of relief, I've discovered.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because we are a spicy group, teenagers with money, right?
Yeah. Yes. And it doesn't, I mean, it's not, you don't turn 50 and it's all downhill. You still have like practically half your life ahead of you. So what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
And I think more and more people don't, as women in particular, I don't think ever want to retire in that sense. We don't want to just sit around. There's so much that we want to do. So, I think it's a mindset.
Talk to me a little bit, talking about a mindset, authenticity. That's a tricky deal and you got to get it right. And even brands who have their heads are in the right place to be reaching out to us. Boy, one false move and we're out of there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So tell me about cultivating authenticity. How do you do it?
By being authentic.
Of course.
I mean, honestly, how many creatives over 50 are there in agencies?
I don't know.
How many people, that's the thing is you have to, I think that agencies need to understand that if you want to connect with this audience, then you also have to hire talent that's in this audience. I mean, there's no other way. You can imagine what it's like ahead of you, but unless you're there, you just don't understand the nuances, of this lived experience. I'm not saying either that, we should necessarily be marketing to Gen Zers, but in some ways, we've been certain ages already. Mm-hmm. So we can connect with that to an extent, but I think it's harder to do it the other way around. And I think that's the simple answer is if you want to be authentic, then hire those people who have authentically lived that experience.
I love that. And my experience on this, I'm going to stay general on this, is that there was a client I worked for a product that they were debuting, and part of the demographic was for women over 50. So they spent a ton of money for an ad campaign. And the end result was the daughter going to the mom and wanting to take her out for this, to go skiing together. And there were like candles going down and it was beautiful and this very moving music. And customers wrote back going, "Is mom dying? Because that looks very, very sad." And we're like, no, this was like, girl power. But it looked all good on paper, but then when it actually got out there, it was a complete miss, right?
So can I ask you, was it done by somebody age appropriate?
It was not. It was done. The agency of record were all solidly in their 20s and 30s. And anybody who was a grown-up person would go, "That doesn't feel right. That feels like a funeral."
That's a great story. And I mean, the other thing is you really have to test it against the audience, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
but the other, you and I talked about this, but a lot of times if you assume you already know people over 50 because you have a mom and a dad, you're like, well, my mom wouldn't do that. And that's sort of the focus group of one. And that's not right either.
No, no. But, you know, it's all on perspective. And right now, I think agencies, for the most part, are, you know, ignoring, I don't know, at least half the story.
Yeah. Well, more opportunity for you.
Yeah. I mean, and the reason, you know, we're so passionate about this work is that we want to bring more of that story to our culture and to media and really rebrand, you know, what aging means for all of us, not just for a certain demographic, but our view of age. What does that mean, you know?
So as customers, we get to vote with our wallet. Do you have any insights or recommendations for how we can support companies who see us?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you see something you like, especially on social media, you know, repost it, reshare it. Obviously, the other thing is just buy. maybe, you know, write to the company and tell them that you appreciate that. I mean, there's been certain campaigns recently too in fashion too that I've loved. There was actually one that was a collaboration with eBay and Louis Vuitton. Did you see that?
No.
Where they used Twiggy. And so on half the page, you know, it was her with a Louis Vuitton bag at the height. I don't know. She was probably like, 18, 19. And then the other side of the page, it was her now with the same bag on eBay. And you see like that bag is now more valuable, right, than it was then.
Oh my God, that is amazing.
Yeah, and it made such a statement. I just loved that. And so, you know, I reshared that all over the place. But, you know, I think we're all swayed by what's out there in the culture and media and TikTok and, you know, social media. So that's one of our most powerful tools, I think. And I've seen a lot of change on social media within this demographic of older women just really owning it, you know, on social media and, as you know, on TikTok. And that makes a huge difference.
So if folks want to know more about you, we talked a little bit about Girls Gone 50 on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Where else can they find you?
Well, LinkedIn, Grace Creative on LinkedIn. And then if you go to our website, gracecreativela.com, you can sign up for Pepper and Salt, which is our newsletter. And we have a new one coming out tomorrow.
Excellent. Susan, thank you so much.
Thank you, Deborah. This has been really fun.
Thanks for listening to the Dareful Project. Please follow, like, and leave a review. It really helps. We're on all your favorite platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Audible, TuneIn, Amazon Music, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and YouTube. And to connect, you can email me at Deborah@dareful1.com. That's Deborah, Debra, at Dareful1, that's with the number 1.com. Thanks for listening.